So patch 6.4 is here, and I wanted to make a video about how to make gil if you missed the big prep wave. I was planning on releasing this last week, but I kinda got caught up in the gil making myself, which kinda works out anyway, since this means that the video will be less reliant on the patch hype and more focused on strategies that will help you throughout the patch. I use every single method in this video, including my personal favorite at the end. And the best part is that you don't have to worry about being a pentamelded gatherer or crafter to do some of these things. And for some, you don't have to be a crafter at all. The most approachable strat for people will probably be farming causality tomes. Despite these going down about 50% since the patch week, there's still a really good opportunity. The idea here is to trade your tomes in for the new materials that are used to craft the new raid gear. A lot of these materials sell fast, and honestly, you could just do this and nothing else and you'd be pretty fine. My advice here is to diversify what you're buying, and to check the prices for the individual materials to see which one's selling the best on your world. Your fastest way to farm tomes will be doing hunt trains. And don't forget to do your level 90 and expert roulettes as well, because those also give you a ton of tomes. It's also worth noting that like the previous patch, we might actually see another spike in the prices of these materials once the new relic step comes out. The reason for this is that a lot of people will be putting their tomes into getting the relic weapons instead, which means less tomes will be around for the materials. I'm not saying to bank materials until the relic comes out, but just keep this in mind. And maybe make sure that your tome cap before the relic patch hits. If you're a crafter, you can make even more profit by turning these into the components that the materials are used for. If you can also gather the materials you use for this, even better. But you can still make some good gil just by buying the mats on the board if you need to. To me, this is one of the comfiest ways to make gil. High-end crafting components move a ton, and unlike selling the raid gear itself, there isn't much bot competition, because the bots are buying the mats. For me personally, I don't want to sit around on the bell undercutting constantly, so I typically prefer things that move faster or have low competition. If you want, you could straight up sell the gathered materials. While it won't be as much as crafting them into the components, it's still a good way to get some gil. It doesn't take a lot of effort to do so because the materials still sell quickly. Before the patch drop, I had planned on talking about materia selling, but honestly, the materia market has been pretty underwhelming. Prices are less than half of what I saw them on the last raid tier drop. They're still okay, and while I can't call it a great gil opportunity, you might as well sell the materia off anyway because it won't really have much use after this patch. This is the last set of crafted raid gear until the next expansion, so this will all be useless pretty soon. My guess is that because a lot of people have been running hunt trains for tomes for the relic weapons, there's just a lot more materia available on the market. And we all know what happens when supply exceeds demand. Another great way to make gil is by farming old trial materials. Specifically, whichever trial receives a new glowy weapon. Back in 6.2, titanium weapons were a hit, and both her material and the weapon sold really well for a long time. On the other hand, the Rubelex weapons from patch 6.3 didn't do so well. My guess is these weapons just didn't sell as well because they didn't look as good. That's subjective of course, but use your best judgment. I did stock up on some of the materials for that weapon, and in hindsight, I kinda wish that I would have sold the materials off when the patch dropped. The prices spiked pretty early, but the weapon sales were a little slow. That's definitely something to keep in mind for the next patch. I was surprised that we didn't get any in 6.4, but I'm guessing that we'll at least see one trial getting glowy weapons next patch. While the obvious picks to farm will be any of the remaining trials from Shadowbringers, I'd say it's worth looking into farming the EX3 material as well, since we might get that weapon in 6.5 the same way we got the Hades weapons in 5.5. It's hard to really predict, so stock up on what you can. And don't forget that you can farm any of the older trials unsynced. There are creators out there who make unsynced trial farming guides, which can help to teach you how to skip certain mechanics. For example, if done properly, you can kill Titania in under 2 minutes. This next strat is one that I haven't really seen people talking about much. In the Island Sanctuary, you can actually buy gathering and crafting materia with the Seafarer's calories. If you've been running a weekly workshop, you probably have a ton banked up by now. This adds up to about 10 to 20 materia per week depending on which one you're getting. And considering some of these materia have been going for 20k or more, that's a lot of gil. I highly recommend looking into this. Even when the materia market dies down, you can still sell some of the dye here for pretty decent gil as well. And finally, my favorite method, housing items. We got a ton of housing items in this patch, and a lot of them look great. If you keep tabs on the housing scene, you've probably seen a lot of these being used in builds. That's a good way to pick up on which items are worth crafting. The great thing about housing items is that they'll often share materials used from the patch. Things like integral, ironwood, palm, and red pine lumber, in addition to arcane velvet. Because you never have the high quality of the housing items, it's easy to do quick synthesis on the components. There's also a chance that you'll see some of the same components being used for the next relic step, so keep that in mind as you're stocking up on things. And of course, we're definitely getting another wave of housing items in the next patch as well. Why I like housing items is that even though the housing items don't sell for a ton, the prices are still decent and they sell consistently. Even in content droughts, there's still a ton of people who are going to be playing regularly, and a lot of them work on their homes. Whenever someone needs to do a redesign, they're heading to the market board. A lot of these things sell in bulk. It's also worth mentioning here that outdoor furnishing items are probably seeing a boost because you can now use them on the island. And if you made it this far, I want to give you a bonus tip. While the profits aren't as good as they were week 1, I'm still seeing this being used, and that's gear crafting, but not to put on the market board. I'm talking Party Finder. I made most of my guild this patch taking orders in Party Finder for the crafted gear. A lot of people are buying full sets anyway, and by doing this, you won't make as much gil as the market board, but you get guaranteed sales. I don't know about you, but a guaranteed 5 million or more sounds pretty good to me. While this method won't have much use after the first few weeks of the raid tier, it's definitely something to keep in mind for the next expansion. Anyway, thanks for making it this far. Let me know in the comments if you have any other fun ways of making guild that I haven't mentioned here. I'll probably make more videos on this in the future for sure, since there's more to guild making than just the housing hype. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.